This is part 2 of She Thought She Was Winning Until the Truth Came Knocking. Please, if you haven't watched part 1, please go ahead and do so, and don't forget to subscribe to my channel and leave a like and a comment on your opinion about the story. The departure of Chisholm was like a festival that the village of Umudi would not forget in a hurry. Ifeoma spent the last of her savings buying expensive lace for her daughter, bragging to every ears that cared to listen. "My daughter is going to Obodo Oyibo, the land of the white men," Ifeoma would shout across the marketplace, "while some people are destined to stay here and smell the smoke of firewood forever." Nneka stood by the wooden gate on the morning Chisholm left for the airport. Chisholm did not even look back. She dragged her heavy suitcases into the taxi with her head held high. When the dust settled, Nneka turned back to the kitchen. Her father, Mazi Obinna, avoided her eyes, coughing loudly as he walked into his barn. But Nneka's heart was no longer breaking. It had turned into iron. 2 years passed like a swift wind, but across the ocean in London, time moved like a heavy stone for Chisholm. The university was not the village school where her mother could threaten teachers or bribe people with tubers of yam. The lectures were fast, the exams were brutal, and Chisholm's stolen foundation could not hold the weight. She failed her first-year papers. She failed the resits. By the second year, the university board looked at her miserable grades and wrote a final letter. Her scholarship was terminated, and she was expelled. Shame is a terrible blanket to wear in a cold country. Chisholm looked at her empty pockets and remembered her mother's loud boasting in Umudi. She could not face the village. Instead of boarding a flight back to Nigeria, she disappeared into the thick, grey fog of London, working illegal, back-breaking shifts in dark restaurant kitchens just to buy bread, her smooth hands turning rougher than the bark of an Iroko tree. She could not even send a single British pound back home. Meanwhile, back home, the world was changing. It was now a modern era where everything moved fast, and Nneka moved with it. She had left the village for the city with nothing but her hollow bamboo stick full of savings and the secret spice recipes her mother had left in her memory. She started small, cooking abacha and rich, smoky party jollof rice by the roadside under a small umbrella. But Nneka's food had a spirit of its own. If you tasted her egusi soup, the aroma would follow you home. If you ate her roasted fish, your feet would automatically bring you back the next day. No one could pass her spot without buying. Within 5 years, the small umbrella became a shop. The shop became a massive, air-conditioned restaurant in the heart of the city, and soon, Nneka's kitchen was a household name with multiple locations across the country. She was living her best life, driving a fine car, wearing the best silk wrappers, and employing dozens of people. 1 year later, 6 years since the great departure, a shadow crept into Mazi Obinna's compound. It was Chisholm. She looked thin, her eyes hollow, her cheap wig crooked on her head. She had finally given up the struggle in London and crept back home in the dead of night. When Ifeoma saw her daughter, instead of tears of joy, her face twisted in bitter anger. "So you came back with nothing?" Ifeoma screamed, slating a plastic basin onto the floor. 6 years in London and you couldn't even bring home a single designer bag. You failed the white man's exam and disgraced my womb. Chisholm wept, shaking her head. "Mama, it was too hard. The books were too heavy for my head." It was during this heavy crying that the village gossip, Mama Ngozi, walked into the compound to fetch water. She looked at Chisholm with pity, then turned to Ifeoma. "Ah, Ifeoma, why are you shouting at her? At least she has seen the airplane before. Why don't you ask her to go to the city and beg her sister Nneka for a job? Have you not heard that Nneka now owns the biggest restaurants in the whole state? Big men line up just to eat her food." The news hit Ifeoma like a physical blow. Nneka, the housegirl, a millionaire. Mazi Obinna, who had been sitting quietly in his corner for years, suddenly dropped his chewing stick. For the first time in 6 years, his voice rumbled with authority. "Let it be, Ifeoma!" Obinna shouted, standing up straight. "Keep your mouth shut. Do you see how the world works now? This is karma. Onye riri ogu, ogu guburuya. You took Neka's scholarship by force and gave it to a child who didn't work for it. You thought you were clever, but the gods of our land do not sleep. See how the girl you left in the dust is now the one flying high, while the one you pushed into the sky has crashed into the mud." Ifeoma opened her mouth to curse him, but the truth in his words was too heavy. She sat on the floor, binding her head in her hands, her heart burning with envy. The very next day, the quiet of the village was broken by the sound of a horn. A long, sleek black car, the kind only governors drove, pulled into Mazi Obinna's dusty compound. The door opened and Neka stepped out, looking like a queen, wrapped in gold lace. Behind her stepped a tall, handsome man with an air of immense wealth. He was from a prominent, highly respected family in the city, and he looked at Neka with eyes full of pure adoration. They had come to officially announce their intentions and prepare for the traditional bride price, while Neka and her man were inside the small parlour, speaking with Obinna. Ifeoma dragged Chisholm into the backyard. Her eyes were wild with desperate greed. "Chisholm, look at that man," Ifeoma whispered fiercely, gripping her daughter's arm. "Look at his shoes. Look at his car. This is your chance to reset your destiny. Tie your wrapper well, put on some oil on your lips, and go outside. Walk past him. Smile at him. Talk to him in that London accent you brought back. Snatch him from that snake Neka before she ties him down." Chisholm tried. She went to the veranda, swaying her hips, trying to speak with a forced British accent as she offered the man water. "Oh, hello, sir. You are welcome to our humble home." But the wealthy man didn't even look at her twice. He politely ignored her, moving closer to Neka and holding his fiancée's hand tightly. He knew exactly who Neka was, a brilliant, self-made woman, and no amount of desperate swaying from a broken returnee could turn his head. Chisholm walked back to the kitchen, deflated and deeply humiliated. Chisholm tried. She went to the veranda, swaying her hips, trying to speak with a forced British accent as she offered the man water. "Oh, hello, sir. You are welcome to our humble home." But the wealthy man didn't even look at her twice. He politely ignored her, moving closer to Neka and holding his fiancée's hand tightly. He knew exactly who Neka was, a brilliant, self-made woman, and no amount of desperate swaying from a broken returnee could turn his head. Chisholm walked back to the kitchen, deflated and deeply humiliated. When the family finally gathered under the big mango tree to discuss the marriage rites, the atmosphere became heavy. The wealthy fiancé stood up, his voice calm but firm. "Mazi Obinna," the young man said, "I am ready to pay whatever bride price you ask, and more, but I know the story of my wife-to-be. I know how she sweated alone in this village. Before we take any wine from this compound, things must be made right." Neka stood there, her hands folded, looking at the three people who had shaped her painful past. Mazi Obinna was the first to step forward. His shoulders were bent with genuine regret. "Neka, my daughter," he said, his voice trembling in the dialect of their fathers. "Anyuri M. Bikodoro M lines. I was a coward. I looked away when I should have been your father. I let peace override justice. Forgive this old man." Then Chisholm looked at her sister. The jealousy was gone, replaced by the crushing weight of her own failure. "Neka, I am sorry," she whispered, tears falling freely. "I took what was yours, and it ruined me. Please forgive me." Finally, all eyes turned to Ifeoma. The proud, wicked stepmother looked at the expensive car, looked at the wealthy son-in-law, and looked at Neka, who held all the power now. The ground felt hot beneath Ifeoma's feet. Slowly, painfully, she dropped her wrapper and knelt down on the red dust before her stepdaughter. "Neka," Ifeoma choked out, her voice cracked with shame. "I treated you like filth. but the chi of your mother fought for you. I am sorry. Put me out of your mind and bless this house before you leave." Neka looked down at her stepmother in the dirt. She did not mock her, nor did she celebrate her downfall. Her victory was already complete. "Rise up, Auntie," Neka said softly, her English clear and dignified. "The past is gone. The gods have already written my story, and no man can scratch out what is destined." She took her fiancé's hand, and as they walked back to the black car to begin her journey into a glorious future, the village of Umudi finally knew peace. The day of Neka's traditional wedding, the red dust of Umudi village was covered in a sea of expensive lace and vibrant George wrappers. It was a wedding that the elders still talk about to this day. Neka's wealthy husband, Emeka, did not just pay the bride price. He brought 3 trucks filled with tubers of yam, bags of rice, massive cows, and crates of drinks that went around the entire village 3 times over. Neka emerged from the house, looking like a true African queen, her coral beads jingling as she walked gracefully, searching for her husband to give him the traditional cup of palm wine. When she found Emeka, she knelt down with a radiant smile, drank a sip, and handed it to him. The crowd erupted into wild cheering and drumming. Even Ifeoma and Chisholm were in the corner, serving guests with humility, completely transformed by the lessons of the past. After the grand celebration, Emeka took his beautiful bride back to the city, and their blessings only multiplied. Neka's restaurant business grew into a massive empire, expanding even beyond the borders of Nigeria, while Emeka's businesses flourished alongside hers. But their greatest joy came inside their home. Over the years, the house was filled with the sweet, chaotic sound of children's laughter. They were blessed with 4 beautiful children. Chidi, their firstborn son, who grew up with his father's calm wisdom and sharp mind. Amara and Adana, twin daughters who inherited Neka's bright eyes, intelligence, and deep love for storytelling. Little Obinna, the youngest, named in honor of reconciliation, who brought a final layer of joy and completion to the house. Neka made sure her children never knew the hunger or sadness she faced as a girl. They went to the best schools, but she also taught them how to be humble, how to cook the legendary family recipes, and how to treat every human being with kindness. Years later, Neka would sit on the wide, beautiful veranda of their estate, watching her 4 children play on the lush green grass, while Emeka sat beside her, holding her hand just as tightly as he did the first day they met. The scars of the old village days were completely gone, replaced by a deep, unshakable peace. She had survived the fire of a wicked stepmother, built her own kingdom from the dust, and created a legacy of pure love. And so, surrounded by wealth, laughter, and an abundance of love, Neka, Emeka, and their 4 beautiful children lived happily ever after.